thing to do.
Finally, it is live stream, right?
Right, now we're live streaming. Okay, well, I think we're groovy now, so we're good to go.
Yeah.
I think we're good to go. We should be streaming.
I think I just received an email by Milton saying that he has not received the link.
What? Oh,
Let
well,
me forward this to Milton. He might not have registered. That may be the reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me, I don't know. I forwarded invite to Milton.
right. I'll just text Foster because he's up soon. We're about to start the event, everybody. We're just waiting for people to join. Has Milton joined us?
I think he's about to join.
Yes, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, lovely.
Hey, Milton, how are you?
Perfect.
I recognize that background on Zoom. I use the same one.
I know.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good choice. Good choice. Well, Maria, I guess it's over.
There we go. And we are starting. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Matthew. And welcome once again. And thank you for joining us today as we continue our discussion on emerging AI opportunities, ethics, and myths, with a special focus on cloud security challenges. The emerging AI technologies, while they present huge, unprecedented advances and benefits, we clearly still have numerous challenges ahead. This week, I read a small article, and according to Lynn Parker, the former White House AI director, America is set for some policy challenges ahead. She says, and I quote, algorithmic bias, a small AI workforce, and insufficiently educated or trained people in this field are all stumbling blocks, which may prevent America from leading the world technologically. And so to help us untangle some of these issues, we have an incredible lineup of speakers for you, industry leaders actively pushing the boundaries of technological advancement. We will have a keynote from a leading cybersecurity and cloud computing expert and CEO of the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute, Dr. Milton Martox. And we have Matthew James Bailey, a pioneer and leader in AI and AI ethics and CEO and founder of AIethics.world, who will be on a global view fireside chat on innovation and the role of ethical technologies and communities to create beneficial systems change with, wait for it, Foster Gamble, a filmmaker behind the very famous and informative documentaries Thrive 1 and Thrive 2, and co-founder of Thrive On Movement and the Ethical Global Solutions Hub. We also have an amazing panel discussion on overcoming AI, cloud and security challenges in organizations scaling operations in 2023, where we will have Kati Walcott, the CTO of Ambient Science, a futurist and ethical AI pioneer. I said it last week, I say it over again, with over 100 patents in some of the technologies you are probably using as we speak. We also have Ajit Jha, an author. I saw his book yesterday. I started reading it. It's amazing. Get it, an author and an influencer in AI and data science, and the president and CEO of EdTech Digit Innovations. And ensuring a smooth ride today, you have myself, Maria McAndrew, the COO of AIethics.world, and my co-pilot, Praveen Hendral, from the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute, who's holding the fort behind the scenes with me. So remember, we welcome you as well, and we're excited to have you with us. And remember to share your thoughts on the chat. And if you have any questions for any of the speakers or any of the panelists, please remember to share them on the comments section, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. So in our first session, as we start, we are joined by the leading AI cybersecurity and cloud computing expert, Dr. Milton Martox. Welcome and thank you, Dr. Milton, for joining us today. Let me see if I do find you.
I'm here. Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and there you are. Thank you so much, Dr. Milton, for making time and for joining us. The floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going to share my presentation. I just want to make sure that everyone can see the presentation at this point.
Yes, it's perfect. We can see it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Today we're going to talk very briefly about the role of artificial intelligence in securing the digital supply chain. We're only going to have about 15 minutes, so we'll just be able to barely scratch the surface. There's a lot of things to cover when you look at it, but we will take a look at, what does AI or artificial intelligence mean as it relates to the digital supply chain and the ever-changing space that we have. Okay. So the first few things we're going to go over, I always like to give, here's what we're going to talk about it, then review what we talked about, like most good writers and journalists like to do. So we're going to very, very quickly go over just very quick, what is artificial intelligence and machine learning? A quick overview of the supply chain management, just to refresh our memories. Then we'll get into the impact of artificial intelligence on the supply chain. So I will start and grab the few definitions here, just so that we can get started into what these are. As you can see in the very first bullet here, artificial intelligence, the AI, performs very complex intellectual tasks, normally handled by humans. It actually goes much farther than that. And so it's the ability to actually reason we're a long way from AI or artificial intelligence reasoning at the levels that we human reason, but with each passing day, each passing week, month, year, we're actually getting closer and closer to making advanced progress in this particular space. Some of the places that you've seen AI used, as just mentioned in our first event that we had last week, you could see, chess players playing against a computer, and the computer then basically understanding what was happening and getting better and better and better with each game that they play. Speech processing, the Go game, which is really quite popular these days, in autonomous vehicles. This is where you can see these things actually in play. One of the things that to me is near and dear to my heart is on the, and just give a very brief example of AI in play on the autonomous vehicles. Many of the companies that are doing electric vehicles that are trying to get to full self-driving capabilities, they are not quite there yet, but they made a tremendous amount of progress. The challenge that we have is that, automobiles and things were made, on roads, and roads have a lot of visual cues, and the visual cues are for humans. And so whether it's a traffic light, a stop sign, a yield sign, these sort of things, we humans visually take these things in, and then we make decisions based on what we're seeing. Cars coming, opposing cars coming from opposing directions. All of these things we take into account. Well, the initial implementation of full self-driving cars have to basically interact in that environment. And so they've done a good job in now using cameras and other things to actually get in and see what's happening in the roads around them. But that's been the challenge, because you need to take in a lot of data, traffic light turning different colors, red, yellow, green, cars coming in from different places, other things happening, people crossing the roads, animals darting out in front of you. All of these things are very visual. And so we're taking in all of this data, and then artificial intelligence needs to make sense of it in nanoseconds, and then make the right decisions. So that's been the challenge. They've certainly made progress, but as long as we're doing roads that still have visual cues, the challenge will continue to be very high. But you're now beginning to see smart roads that are built inside of smart cities that will be communicating to automobiles. Automobiles will be communicating with themselves, which I call like an AutoNet. And so all of these things, grid lots and things like that, will start to become a thing of the past as we move progressively into more and more artificial intelligence being used inside of that ecosystem, the ecosystem of the cars, self-driving on the roads. We're a long way away from that. We still have a lot of things to overcome, but that's an example of the challenge that we have to have. You have to take in all of these visual cues, make sense of it, and then make decisions based on the things that you're taking in. Machine learning is looking at those things that we've done, the computer does, it then learns from it, and then hopefully does better the next time it goes around. And it continues to do that over and over and over. It stops generally where it becomes reasoning, what strategic decisions should be made based on this information that I'm taking in. It just learns from repetitively going through these things over and over. AI is the next level up where it actually starts to reason. So if you look just very briefly at the supply chain, there's some definitions here that I'm just going to breeze through. I think we'll jump right to the next picture, which shows an actual depiction, if you will, of the supply chain. Okay. Generally, you start at your raw material, go to supplier, factory, distribution, retail, then the customer. But what I'm not showing here is that, especially over the past couple of years, 2.5 years, we actually now have more and more people working remotely in every single step of this process. Obviously, there's some things that people need to physically be on premise to do as they handle raw materials and supplies and work in factories. But as increasingly you're seeing more and more individuals also working remotely throughout the supply chain and just in each of these companies, if you will, as you go through this list. And so you have this supply chain, and the question is, what does AI do in this particular case? How can it make the supply chain better? And then even more important, we're getting data, just loads and loads of data from every single point in the supply chain. And the supply chain actually has more points than this, but this is a very high level of representation. We're getting so much data, and the data is being shared amongst each of the entities within the supply chain. The question is, how does AI fit in that? And we can, look at how AI can help optimize this whole process. But then from a cybersecurity perspective, how does AI impact the security of this particular flow? And that's one of the things that we're going to take a very brief look at. Again, with the time allotted, we don't have time to do a deep dive into the cybersecurity piece as it relates to AI in this ecosystem, but we will touch the surface, or we'll scratch the surface. But this is the idea here. This is again, a general representation of the supply chain, and AI can be invoked in any part of this process to help make it more efficient. Where we gather raw materials, what raw materials are coming into the supplier. There's individuals that enter this data and doing data entry, at least the way it used to be. Now all of these things can be gathered automatically, and then decisions can be made based on, are the supplies low, or do we need more? Do I need to move things over? Then we pass that on to the factories. Factories can now automatically put these things in, making decisions using artificial intelligence to get better at optimizing when and how they receive things, and then move it downstream, like to distribution, retail, and the customers say. But when you got all of these things happening, you got all this data going back and forth. On the cybersecurity side, we say, this is your threat landscape. And you got data automatically happening with artificial intelligence, and there's some manual processing happening. Hackers and nefarious individuals can then come and take a look at, where can I find vulnerability in this particular process, and then hack my way into there. And so, again, the threat landscape has increased tremendously because you got so much data being shared up and down the line. And then a lot of that data has been automated through artificial intelligence and things like that. And so you have to make sure that we are looking at and keeping a track on everything that's happening in this particular process. So one of the things that, I'm just going to, emphasize one of these things, but you have inside of the supply chain process, you got demand forecasting, material sourcing, again, all the way down to delivery in logistics. But let's take a very quick look at demand forecasting and see how AI will play a role in that. And then we can talk about what that means for security. Okay, generally, these are a couple of things that, actually three in this case, that I took a look at as part of this, preparation for this particular segment. Demand forecasting, again, is doing predictive analytics, which is where all of the process of estimating customer demand, as we stay here, is being analyzed. And again, all of this is based on historical data that came before, and then we keep getting this data, and then we use predictive analytics to actually make decisions on what it is we're going to do. Again, predictive analytics is not quite full artificial intelligence, but it's definitely a good step into that direction. The other thing that we can do with AI is that we can use machine learning to predict, demand, as I talked about previously. And that is, you just watch what's going on. And even if it's just straight up normalization curve, using the statistical normalization curve, normal curve, you can actually then start predicting where things are going to occur within plus or minus 1 or 2 standard deviations, and then you get better and better and better as you get out there and get really, really good at predicting where we're going just by utilizing and implementing machine learning. And then generally organizations use, a form of AI to avoid inefficiencies. And I like to say that the AI is used to optimize everything that's going on. Just very briefly, the optimization is a challenge today for artificial intelligence, machine learning, what we're doing inside of the supply chain, and then making sure that we optimize the threat landscape and try to reduce that threat landscape. When we actually get into quantum computing, one of the things that quantum computers do extremely well, even today, is that they handle optimization type problems extremely well, much better than classic computers today. But before we go there, let's just use AI, machine learning, and others to help make the inefficiencies much less in the whole supply chain ecosystem. So let's take a quick look at how do we secure the supply chain. Let's first start off with the problem statement, and then let's look at 5 things that can be done. So I framed the problem statement this way, and forgive me, I'm just gonna, I think this is a good sentence, so I would just go through it, at least very briefly. With more and more people working from home, and literally billions of people purchasing products globally, most of the time or many times from their mobile devices or desktops and things like that, your threat landscape has gotten enormous. Threat landscape is the potential points in the way that the business is being conducted where there could be vulnerabilities. And people, the various individuals, every single day, 24 hours a day, trying to find vulnerabilities. And so the problem is that we have more and more data that's being shared throughout the supply chain. And some of this data, and rightfully so, because that can make the whole process much more efficient. And some of this data is mission critical. And how do we protect this mission critical data throughout the supply chain as these things are becoming more and more automated? That's generally the sense. And then we highlight failing to establish these controls to protect the partner's data leads the company's network. And I'm going to say network here is not just the company, but every single partner's network up and down the supply chain is completely vulnerable by not looking at how do we make sure that these things are secure. So we got 2 things happening. We can use artificial intelligence to make things more efficient. We can do predictive analytics with it, optimize the process, and make sure that by becoming more efficient, we can drive down costs and pass on those savings, hopefully, to the consumers. And that's good for everyone. Just be much more efficient all the way around. But likewise, with the sharing of all of this data, as we become much more efficient from a threat landscape perspective, we also become more and more vulnerable, and we become less secure. So there's an inverse proportional relationship to being more efficient in security, right? So you become way more efficient, at least until a point, and then there's a point where you can they work hand in hand. But as you become much more efficient at sharing more and more data and using that data to do artificial intelligence predictive analytics, the more data is being shared, the more chance there are for vulnerability. And so that's I guess at a high level, what the issues that we're trying to address. And I'm going to move just a little bit faster here, just to make sure we don't run out of time. Say here, fortunately, corporate leaders are recognizing that this is a case, and they need to secure the entire digital supply chain, not just their piece of it. And they need to work with their partners to ensure that, as we used to say when I was writing code many years ago, garbage in, garbage out. You need to make sure that nowhere along the supply chain that we have a major weakness that will convey or expose vulnerabilities to hackers who are trying to attack the system. So one of the things we're going to do, we're going to take a look at 5 ways to secure the digital supply chain. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, again, and for the sake of time. You can align security requirements and making sure that everything that we have, the requirements are aligned from the starting at raw materials all the way out to distribution. Is that what we believe is should be secure, and what our policies are need to be holistic, and we need to all be in alignment, and then we can work more together harmoniously so that we can help protect the entire ecosystem. We always do, and this is a big one, implement continuous controls and monitoring. And again, the idea is to shift from just saying, hey, I'm compliant, I'm meeting some sort of compliance standard, which is very important, to adopting a very, very broad view of making sure that cybersecurity or the security is present across the entire supply chain segment. And so it can't just be focused on my piece. My piece being, raw materials people, or the factory, distribution. Everyone needs to be deeply aware of what's happening upstream, downstream, and what their role is in the whole ecosystem. Here's where the rubber meets the road from a security perspective. You want to explore opportunities to leverage automation where we can. That's the good news. And we can make sure that things are much more efficient, as I stated previously. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're using artificial intelligence, machine learning to help make those things more automated, but also to make them more secure, right? So I've talked about so far using AI, machine learning, to help make the ecosystem more efficient and optimize it. But we can also use AI in machine learning in helping to make the security of the ecosystem much more efficient, right? So while hackers are doing their thing, that's data. We can look at, someone is trying to log in, they have so many failed attempts within a certain period of time. We can actually do predictive analytics on that. Today, most cybersecurity types of implementations is based on a very defensive posture. What are they doing? How can I block it? Tomorrow, if we implement artificial intelligence as it relates to improving the protection of your ecosystem, maybe, just maybe from a cybersecurity perspective, we can move from a purely defensive posture to sometimes being much more offensive. In meaning, I can see these attacks occurring. I see it's coming from IP addresses in XYZ country. Maybe we do things to actually go out and gather information about that individual or individuals or organization and wage a minor counterattack, nothing where we jump into war and the cyber wars, but just understanding where they are to help thwart these types of things in the future, right? I'm not saying we would actually do things like, we identified the computers that they're coming from, and then we send a power surge down the line to fry their power supplies and things like that. We don't want to do that because we have major issues across the globe. But we do want to get more offensive in trying to understand where these things are coming from. How can we predict that they're going to occur? And then what can we do to help prevent some of the havoc that they wreak upon the whole system? Fourth item, just being, again, staying mindful of the regulatory requirements. They're continuing to evolve. They are evolving faster and faster and faster. And many companies think, I'm not going to worry about, the change in regulatory, compliance until it impacts me directly. By the time they worry about it, it might be too late. So you kind of have to stay on top of all of these things. And then the fifth item here is applying security measures to protect the broader ecosystem. Any weakness throughout the supply chain, as they say, we're only as strong as our weakest link. That is never more true than it is today, not just in supply chain, but just in all of digital communications and transactions and things like that. The weakest link is what the cyber attackers called, vulnerability. That's what they're going after, and that's what they're trying to find. So the takeaway, and I just highlighted a few things and a lot of sentences here. And so I'm just gonna look at the things that are highlighted. We need to, at the very beginning, organizations need to look at sharing data constantly. And it's the data that gives the ability for artificial intelligence to do its thing, machine learning to do its thing. We're taking this data, we're making predictions based on this data, and then we're going to start making decisions based on strategic decisions automatically, again, within nanoseconds. Happening millions, if not billions of times a second, that these things will be happening across the supply chain. So we need to make sure that we're sharing this data on a near constant basis, but we're doing it in a way that's secure. The next item, cybersecurity leaders, and it just highlighted here, are not only tasked with securing their own organization, they need to be concerned about the whole ecosystem. Again, the weakest link. Third, cybersecurity leaders must leverage AI and ML to automate where viable, and then implement maybe some counterattack measures to try to thwart some of these things that are happening. Today, nefarious individuals can come at you almost unopposed. And if we don't find who they are, they just keep doing it and doing it and doing it because there's really not a huge consequence yet in what they're doing. So we need to look at optimizing and the counterattack measures. Finally, we need a knowledgeable workforce, a workforce that's skilled in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cybersecurity. Is the need for these individuals increasing dramatically, and I would say that's where we start. Right, we can look at putting in processes, implementing AI, and things like that, but we need individuals who really understand these things and understand the broader scope of what it is that we're trying to do. And so let's take a look at it and say, how do we get that knowledgeable workforce in place? And this will be the end of this particular segment. One of the things that we do at USAII, United States Artificial Intelligence Institute, is that we provide a way for people to come up to speed and get certified in artificial intelligence. And we also do have a certification program in cybersecurity. And so that's our United States Cybersecurity Institute. And so these things together, and this is available to the masses, not just individuals and certain companies or certain locations. It's available to anyone who wishes to go off and learn it, that can start helping themselves, and companies can start helping themselves build that knowledgeable workforce. And with that, we can see if there are any questions, and I'll turn it back over to you, Maria.
Thank you very much, Dr. Milton. And before you go, would you take a very quick question on the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute? You are at the forefront of one of the leading artificial intelligence institutes. Can you share more on what the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute offers, or any offers for those that are joining us today?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we have a quick overview. Do you have it that you can present it on your end, or should I?
Yeah, I'm sharing it for you.
Okay, so let's go through this very briefly on what we do. And so, as you can see here, it's basically we say it's a fast track to future ready AI leaders. We believe that there's an exponential growth in the need for skilled individuals in artificial intelligence. It's outpacing the ability for universities and other entities to churn out individuals with these skills. We want to help them come up to speed very quickly and getting certified. So if we stop here for a second, we have 3 certifications that we provide. One is to certify AI engineer, consultant, and then scientist. All of these things are made available. We look at where people are in their careers and their industries and things like that, and then they get slotted, if you will, into one of these types of certification. Then they can go through the process. This is some background information on what we are doing, why we believe that this is beneficial. As you can see here, there's a lot of things that are going in here. I just want to highlight the global recognition, 160 plus countries that our certification programs are recognized in. And so you can do these things, go through the certification and get these things today. As you're going through the process, individuals, there's a lot of resources that are made available for them, as we're showing here, books, videos, articles that can help them through. If they want to get instructor-led, we can make that available as well. They eventually get a certification that they can do. It can be in the form of a physical that they can print it out, or they can get a digi-badge that they can put all over social media, and you can show this certifications right there. And so here are just a few things that the people who have gone through the program that they're saying. We don't have to spend too much time here, but and these are some of the companies that individuals, alumni who've gone through the program. These are some of the companies that they work for. So at a very high level, that's what we're doing. But we want to take the opportunity to announce today that we want to make, if you could go back to that just for a second, that K-12 one, we want to democratize what we're doing, right? We want to make AI, the learning certification available to everyone. So we are announcing a K-12 AI certification where we're looking at students, kindergarten to 12th grade from a United States type of perspective, and making these things available to them. And so we want to start, getting people, kids, individuals up to speed much sooner. And so this program will be launched on September 26th in 2022. And we're actually doing, we picked a few cities that we're going to actually launch the program in and have it actually free for those individuals. The program has a cost, but we picked a few cities that we're going to roll it out in and make it free for a few organizations to get their very well-deserved young people certified in artificial intelligence. So you can see here, we have an online offer that if you use this code, you can get a discount, this voucher code. If you go to our site, use this code, and then you can get discounts for going through it. But at a high level, that's basically what we do. And we have my colleagues on as well, either Ajit or Praveen. If I left anything out, please feel free to jump in.
No, Milton, thank you. You have covered almost everything. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Maria, for going through that and allowing us to give just a quick overview of what we're doing at the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Milton. And yeah, that was quite a lot of information. So do check out the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute at www.usaii.org. And so we are moving on. I feel like I grew a lot of brain cells from this session. And the next session, we have two gentlemen that are both affecting the future of humanity positively. And they will be discussing innovation and the role of ethical technologies and communities to create beneficial systems change. So let me welcome Matthew.
Hello.
Hi, Matthew.
Is Foster here? Hi, Maria. Good to see you. Is Foster here? Has he managed to get in yet? Are you here, Foster?
I'm here. I don't know if you can see me. I don't see my name on it, but I'm here.
Oh, hi, Foster. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Maria. It's a pleasure to be with you all.
All right, well, Matthew, take it away.
Thank you. Well, I put on a very bright shirt today, Foster, because you normally wear bright shirts, and now you've gone into business suits.
Well, I guess you can see me then. I can't see myself. Is my image available to everyone?
It is. It
okay,
is.
Great. Well, I certainly don't need to see myself.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And let me just do a very brief introduction for the audience. Foster is a wonderful global leader dedicated to creating beneficial change for the human species, long-term view to nourish the human species and our relationship on the earth, to nurture and nourish our consciousness. And Foster and Kimberly Gamble released a film called Thrive One a few years ago, which is one of the most viewed documentaries in the world. I did a quick calculation, Foster, and over 1% of the world's population have seen your film, which is quite remarkable, really. And I know you've just released Thrive 2. So do check out Thrive 1, Thrive 2. Basically, Foster is just this incredible visionary of our time. So I'm delighted you're here, and we'll ask a few questions and dive into a few areas, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
It's good to see you. So Foster, why don't you tell us a little bit more, tell about the Thrive 1 and Thrive 2 movies. And moreover, why did you create the Thrive 2 movies?
Well, I was a filmmaker early in my life. I created the filmmaking department at Princeton University when I was there because I wanted to make films and they didn't have a filmmaking department. So I've always loved films and I got started there. And I told my friends that someday I would make a film about what's in the way of humanity thriving and what we can do about it. And I thought that maybe it would take 5 years, maybe 10 if I'm really conservative. Well, 42 years later, I was finally ready to make the film. And what I mean by that was I felt like I had a sufficient understanding of the problems that we were facing, but also of the solutions, because I felt it would be irresponsible to just come out with a whole lot of bad news if I couldn't accompany it with solutions that were actually commensurate to the problem. And when I was in college, I had a lot of friends who were engineers, and they would tell me, they say, Foster, someday we're going to have a digital global communication system where the entire world can speak to each other and see each other instantaneously. And I'm like, well, these guys are smart. I was like, I think you're probably right. I have no idea how to do that, but you guys do. You work on that, and I'll work on having some sufficiently meaningful content to deliver through a system like that. So to jump to the future, then in 2011, we released Thrive, What on Earth Will It Take? And we honestly didn't know whether people would be ready for this film or not, whether we'd have to broadcast it out to other planets, put it in a time capsule for the future of humanity or whatever. But because we had spent 30 years researching what's in the way, and it's a pretty radical film, but very accurate. We had 68 radical claims about what's really going on behind the scenes. Not a single one now, over 10 years later, has been disputed with any success. And so from the time that the movie came out, it went viral immediately and is now over 94 million views. And the exciting thing to us about that was it showed us that humanity is not only ready to hear truth, at least a big percentage of humanity, but they're hungry to hear truth so that they can get an accurate diagnosis so that we can actually heal these problems. And that's what turned out to be happening with Thrive 1. We got contacted by so many innovators, over 1,000 inventors and other innovators from all over the planet, and spent over 5 years traveling around visiting with these innovators to find out who actually was real, who had what. Kimberly was doing mostly health innovations. I was doing mostly energy innovations. And what we found was so exciting that we bit the bullet and decided to make Thrive 2, because we didn't think we'd ever put ourselves through that much stress and work. The first film took 8 years. The second one, we were a little more efficient. We did it in 2.5 years. But in 2 years ago, next month, we literally launched Thrive 2, This Is What It Takes. And the purpose of that was to show that the answers to all of these major problems are already in existence on planet Earth. Now it's a matter of freeing them up so that the new energy technologies can be released, the health technologies can be released. So it becomes much more of a political and security issue rather than a technological one. So that brings us up to date on the actual media outreach that we've been doing.
That's great. And there was a watch party on YouTube, and I know it's up on YouTube, isn't there? A watch party. It's worth checking out, everybody, on YouTube. Thrive 2 watch party. So you've been documenting over many years remarkable new technologies right at the frontier of innovation. Can you share one or two that have really thrilled you that will make a difference in our story?
Well, sure, I'd be delighted to. There's good news and there's bad news. First, on the health front, we found 4 doctors in different places around the world who were healing cancer, chronic fatigue, AIDS, and other major diseases at over 80 to 90% success rates. Wow. That's the good news. And 3 of them are still alive. One of them, unfortunately, Dr. Naram from India, died suspiciously last year at a reasonably young age. 2 of the other ones are in hiding in foreign countries after assassination attempts on their lives. And the 4th one, Dr. Robert Young, is in the US and providing access to healing, but being badgered mercilessly by the government with all sorts of false charges to try to keep him tied up in court and so forth. But the bottom line is, on the level of principles, these cures existed. They're all natural, and more they will be getting out to the world. On the energy side, I have found about a half a dozen very exciting energy technologies. For energy, we need 3 types of technologies to really solve the problem. We need energy generation, energy transmission, and then energy distribution. And we found several amazing technologies which are using different approaches. One is radio frequency, another is rotating electrons in coils in particular geometries that then end up focusing 20,000 volts in the core that you can then use in electric circuits. I found other ones that are rotating electromagnetic fields to access energy. The common denominator of all those technologies is that they're all toroidal in nature. A torus is a donut-shaped whirlpool vortex that we describe and animate in Thrive 1 and Thrive 2. It's actually the fundamental pattern of sustainability for energy systems at every scale throughout the universe, as far as we can tell. It's a really big deal that most people weren't aware of until it's just starting to come into science right now. So that was on the generation front, and we're in the process of helping those inventors get those technologies safely out. I'm working with a team down in Texas that has recreated Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, and it is capable of transmitting energy wirelessly. And so we're working with them to get that out as a safe and secure business as well. And then on the distribution end, the best thing we've found is a former American nuclear physicist who woke up to the dangers of nuclear, moved to the jungles of Costa Rica, and dedicated himself to the technological development of distribution systems. And so he created something called the Hart Transverter. His name is Hart Akerson. And so we know about converters and inverters, but this is a transverter that takes all different types of energy technologies and then blends them into a decentralized grid at any scale. And that holds tremendous potential for not only avoiding blackouts and brownouts and so forth, but avoiding control of our energy systems by a totalitarian few. So that's a quick update on some of the highlights.
Well, very exciting indeed. Very exciting indeed. Thank you for sharing those. So just briefly, your life mission really is dedicated to enable humanity to thrive. You're about enabling innovation.
Yes.
What is your vision for humanity to thrive?
Well, it's probably my favorite question, because we have so much bad news from all the media these days that our young people, we have found, are really getting indoctrinated out of holding a positive vision of what could be. And if you can't imagine it, it's going to be really hard to create it. So my vision is that in every single sector, we use a 13 sector solutions structure for all of our activism, but it basically covers the major endeavors of humanity, from justice to science to arts to economics to governance to relations, spirituality, and so forth. And my vision is that in every sector, the barriers have been released to allow for human creativity, which shows up in what we call whole system solutions. So a whole system solution in food is organic polyculture or permaculture. It's honoring the way nature naturally does it, so you end up with abundant, healthy food. In energy, rather than crushing atoms together or exploding things in order to pull the energy out of the universe, you simply develop a system that mimics what nature is doing anyway, put it into resonance with the unified field, and lo and behold, it gives you as much clean, free energy as you want. And in terms of education, rather than having a centralized government indoctrination system, if you've really got educational choice based on the enthusiasm of young people, then you're going to have a whole system educational opportunity where children can really follow their interests, get the mentorship that they need, and sustain the passion that is naturally there in them. In an economy, a whole system is the result of a true free market that unleashes everybody's creativity, but holds everybody accountable for any violation, any fraud, and that type of thing. And the free market has shown itself. The few examples we've had of anywhere close to a truly free market and with honest money, that's what will unleash humanity. It's proven itself more than anything. So if we had more time, I would go through every single sector and just describe this is what it can be like for humanity to get up every morning. You walk down the street, you visit with your friends, and everybody's eyes are lit up because they're doing what they want to do with their life. They're being successful. They're being creative. People have learned how to interact with each other harmoniously and create successful entrepreneurship to actually solve all of these problems. And I know that that's not only possible, that's what we were born for, and that will happen. But we've still got some challenging times in breaking the shackles off and unleashing that creativity.
I love that vision. That's absolutely fine. That we're in this universal experience of expansion and creation. The power of creation is flowing through us, and liberating that power of creation. My goodness, just where can we go? In freedom and do no harm, based on your principle. So briefly, I'd like to discuss with you something that Rajiv Malhotra was discussing last week. And he felt that there were two critical needs within the age of AI. The first need is it must not delete the richness of our consciousness or suppress our spiritual journey. And the second thing is, he said, it must honor the richness of our cultural diversity. That is beautiful, the richness of our cultural diversity. So here's the question. What are your thoughts on spirituality and consciousness within the age of artificial intelligence?
Well, I don't believe there is a more important question on the planet right now, because I am a huge fan of artificial intelligence, but I'm also a huge fan of the ocean. I'm a huge fan of electricity. I'm a huge fan of knives and guns when used properly. If artificial intelligence gets out of hand, it literally could destroy the human species. So, and AI is not going away, and I don't want it to go away. So what I'm dedicating a lot of my energy to, and I know you are too, that's why I love talking with you, is that we need to be aiming toward what I call the human fulfillment singularity rather than the human replacement singularity. I believe human beings are here to continue to develop our spirit as it's incarnated in a human body, to be healthy physically, to be healthy emotionally, to be healthy intellectually, to learn how to interact with each other in really fulfilling and harmonious ways, and to do the same with the environment. That, to me, is the challenge of human fulfillment. I've had numerous debates in person and online with some of the leaders of the transhumanist movement, and I've been really concerned with fundamental ignorance on their part, many of their parts, about the nature of the unified field. This field of energy, boundless energy that we live in, only a very small percentage of which we can even perceive with our human senses and even with our instrumentation. And the nature of that field is alive, it's boundless, and it's conscious.
Right.
And not a single one of the major leaders in the transhumanist movement that I found have an understanding of that. What I felt was just a pervasive fear of dying, a fear of loss of their loved ones, a fear of loss of their physical body. And yes, we all have our concerns about our mortality. And yet, as you come into a realization about the boundless nature of your being, which way transcends your physical body. I mean, I was in neuroscience for many years at a company in Silicon Valley. And I'm very clear after all of my research that the brain is an antenna to the consciousness of the human, of the unified field, rather than consciousness being some random epiphenomenon, the organization of molecules in the gray matter. That's a very insufficient approach. It's great for some things, but it doesn't touch who we really are. And if we recognize that, then if we recognize the power of the human spirit, and we recognize the importance of each individual's sovereignty with that spiritual nature, then we can develop ethics for the interaction of humans and machine that will allow for the full development of the potential of human enhancement, human remediation, technological advancement, and so forth. But keeping in mind the single most important thing, in my opinion, is that the actions of human beings need to be voluntary. They can't be coerced. Look at the entire history of dictatorship, royalty, fascism, socialism, communism, and even democracy. I know this will challenge a lot of people, but even democracy is mob rule. What we're heading toward, Martin Luther King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. We're still bending. We're getting closer and closer, but we're not there yet. And what we're getting close to is individual sovereignty. So when it comes to AI, I believe the most important thing is that as it's developed, we have the certification programs like what you're developing, some of the others on this call, to educate people and then to make sure that we're not condoning that any company, any nation state, any military, any intelligence agencies has the authority to coerce people, to force people into getting neural implants or succumbing to any of the potential of AI dictatorship. And if we can thread that needle, just continue to grow the AI ethics so that it honors the true nature of the human spirit, not only will we unleash all this creativity, but we will show the other beings throughout the cosmos that we are worthy of joining the cosmic community. And I think that that's a lot of what they're waiting for now. I think that we're in quarantine to see if we can work this one out. And I know that we can, but I think we're in for a very challenging transition.
Thank you very much. I love this idea, and I agree with you, is we're heading towards this fulfillment paradigm, a greater knowledge of our experience within the unified field. And I think that to me is tremendously exciting. And for me, that's the actual purpose of artificial intelligence, is to liberate us into that. Yes. So let me ask you two quick questions. The first question is, and I know you're a big fan of sovereignty. What moral principles would you specifically program within ethical AI? I know that you've covered a lot in your previous answer, but is there anything specific you'd like to draw out that you would put in program within ethical AI?
Yeah, I want to be really specific on that, because after I'm about to turn 75, and I've spent my entire life on this quest of how can humans relate successfully to energy and to each other. And one of the most profound realizations that I've had, I'm not the first, but I finally came across it, is that humanity, the main thing we've been missing is a universal morality. You know, for a long time ago, there was no morality. Whoever had the biggest club and the biggest gang, you know, set the rules. And then the church came along with a real sense of ethics. Every major religion has at its core a sense of ethics, but they don't necessarily agree with each other. People disagree about God's word. And so people started fighting with each other. The churches started fighting with each other, resulting in hundreds of millions of deaths. And then, but then along came the rule of law, you know, the state, the nation state. And it was a big improvement in some ways. Because you were coming up with actual laws that everybody was supposed to be subject to. However, the nation states disagreed, and each government, you know, in a particular nation state would disagree because they were developing the rules for selfish reasons, for arbitrary reasons, rather than actually looking to the universe. Well, I think where we are now is that if we don't find that universal morality, we will extinguish ourselves as a species through nuclear weapons, bioweapons, chemical weapons, whatever. And the good news is that I believe that there are many people who have found this principle. It's referred to as the non-aggression principle. Martin Luther King referred to it. Gandhi called it Hind Swaraj, self-governance. And it simply states, this is so simple that we've been missing it forever. It simply states that no one is allowed to initiate force or fraud against anyone else except in true self-defense. So it really is as simple as non-violation. No one gets to initiate force. If someone's trying to injure you, you can protect yourself, but you can't initiate force against someone else, and you can't cheat them. So what I have found in traveling around the world is it's the one principle that I've found that every single person I've ever met agrees to for themselves. You know, it's hard enough to get your family to agree on what's for dinner, much less to get the entirety of humanity to agree on a moral principle. Well, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who want to dominate other people, but when it comes to themselves, every single person says, no, I don't want anyone else violating me against my will. It's obvious. It defines violation itself. So what if, just like we finally found the fundamental blueprint for sustainable energy systems, what if we finally found the blueprint for morality, the universal morality? And I believe that we have. I haven't seen a good argument. I've been working on this one for 20 years. Haven't heard a good argument against it yet, or any disagreement in terms of one's personal life. So how do we shape our interactions, our organization as humanity, our businesses, our technologies, and so forth around that principle? That's the major challenge we have right now. And that's one of the main things that I want to offer to this ever-growing global table of AI development is, yeah, let's develop all this great stuff. But before we release anything, let's be clear, does the technology itself, or does the implementation of the technology include any involuntary violations of another human being? So that to me is the core of what we need for ethical AI.
That's perfect. I love that answer. That goes to the right of the heart of the ethical purpose of artificial intelligence. So one last question. You're a man of action, that's for sure. And you're launching the Thrive Global Solutions Hub. Can you share a little bit more about that and where people can find out more?
Yeah, I think this is probably my last major offering to the world, given my age. And I still got plenty of energy, but I know this doesn't go on forever. And so the first film was to diagnose the problem. The second film was to show that the solutions already exist. Then we found so many people were wanting to go deeper into the conversations that we were bringing up, that for the last 2 years, we've had an online show called the Freedom Portal with Foster Gamble, where people can join and dive deep into all these major issues in every single sector. And I bring major experts on, I do deep dives, we have community discussions and so forth. But now what is emerging is that so many people, both in our network and networks worldwide, are catching on to the tyrannical, what I call the global domination agenda that is going on, that people are going, okay, it's bad news, but at least it's reality. So, okay, I got it. Now, what can I do as an individual? So we have been working for 1.5 years developing an independent, open source, decentralized software platform that we call the Thrive Solutions Hub. and it's in 40 languages, and it allows people to, if they're ethical solutionaries, they will be disqualified from using this platform if they don't agree to the non-aggression principle. But if they do, then they can come in and create a space where they can promote to all the other networks that are involved in the Solutions Hub. They can meet in encrypted ways if they need to, or very public ways. They can invite other people into their space. They can share best resources and best practices. That's one of the major things, is that if you have spent 3 years creating a successful lawsuit, well, share that with the world. Don't make everybody else go recreate that same wheel. So sharing resources is a really important part of it. And then the kind of the ultimate that's coming into play is what we call the network for networks, because every meaningful network wants to expand their reach, include more people in their conversation. So you can communicate through what we call our coordinated circle to all the other networks. Now, the head of each network gets to decide whether or not they pass on your information, because so we're not violating anyone's email list, any network, because that's the essence of the global network of trust right now, is each person has been building up a following or a network of people who actually trust them over time. What we're doing is creating the capacity for those ethical solutionary networks to find each other, to collaborate, and then to spread the word, as well as we're offering numerous webinars on effective activism, on creating critical mass actions, divestment, and protests and lawsuits and notices of liability and so forth. There's a whole spectrum of strategies that we're training people in, but fundamentally we want to have an open source platform that will just outlive me by generations, where people can get what they need in terms of self-identification of purpose and what their sector and their issue of choice and so forth, but then also how to organize a group and how to be effective in your activism and how to find other groups worldwide. So what we're looking to do with this tool, and it's launching to the public in a couple of months. Right now, if you want to get in and start participating in it, there's a free trial for the Freedom Portal, and you can join that for 7 days for free. And through that, you can actually get free access to the Solutions Hub as well. You can create a space and see, if you want to participate, if it'll be useful to you or not. So it's been in beta for over 6 months. Many large groups are using it. We've been getting their feedback and improving the system. The security is very solid. And we will be announcing probably in October or November that we will be opening it to the public when we know that we're really ready to serve massive numbers of ethical solutionaries, because that's what's coming. We intend that this facilitate the greatest ethical grassroots movement in human history. And that really includes AIs right at the peak of that.
That's great. Thank you ever so much, Foster, for joining us today.
Great pleasure.
Where can people find out more? What's your website URL?
Yeah, just go to www.thriveon, THRIVEON.com, and everything is available there.
That's great. Thanks ever so much. It's been great talking with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's great to be with you all.
Namaste. Thank you. Bye-bye. Maria, over to you. Maria, over to you.
Oh, yes, here I am. Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you so much. That was an amazing chat. And thank you, Foster, for that. Matthew, I would love us to have a quick discussion or conversation about AI and AI ethics before you step away. Because, I mean, you are heading one of the leading AI ethics organizations, AIethics.world, which is accelerating the age of ethical intelligence. I should know, right? Yeah. So what? So can we have a quick chat about AI ethics and what it stands for and what our audience can expect to see within these coming months?
Sure. And just to let everybody know that the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute is, we're thrilled to be partnering with them. You've had a flavor of the diversity of the courses that they have, the expertise, the kind of companies they're working with to empower the workforce of the future in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity that Dr. Milton so eloquently talked about. And there's a huge shortfall, and we want people to participate in the age of AI. It's really exciting. So I just want to re-emphasize that we're absolutely thrilled to be partnering with the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute, and we will be making an announcement with Foster's team when they launch. We're thrilled to be working with the communities and the movement that Foster's and Kimberly have been building up, and we're excited about the potential. We're excited about the human potential. We're excited about people discovering this fulfillment experience, which I believe is the true destiny of the human potential. Okay, great. Maria, your questions.
All right, thank you very much, Matthew. And I am quickly sharing my screen. Am I sharing the right screen of aiethics.world?
You are.
Okay, perfect. So this is a bit about aiethics.world, and this is who we are: accelerating the age of ethical intelligence, empowering the global AI ecosystem, and leading in innovation, leadership training, and consulting. And we have a suite of services that you can find on our website, www.aiethics.world, and the ethical AI certification and maturity model. Matthew, do you want to shed a little light on that? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so this plays into the world vision that Foster shared. It's something that myself and Cotty Walcott, who's on the call, who's a genius in innovation, have co-developed together. And this really is a model for global change. It's about empowering nations, regions, and cities and organizations to set the new standard for the age. Can you go back, please? To set the age of ethical AI, and to shepherd, and shepherd's really important, this new paradigm we're moving into, ethical-centric societies and industries. The AI industry is very familiar with the Turing test, which was effectively a set of subjective questions to achieve objective outcomes, assessing the human quality or the human capability of artificial intelligence. This is about taking the same approach, but going much further to assess the ethical quality of artificial intelligence. And that's really, really important. There's a whole depth, as I spoke last week, and people can listen to my talk, there's a whole depth to ethics, that it's not 1 or 0. It differs between individuals, it differs between cultures, and what we need is a model that allows us to transparently see the different ethical qualities between artificial intelligence in order to truly understand, are we aligned and can we collaborate? And are you providing artificial intelligence that's based on regions or cities or nations or an organization's ethical terms? We do have lots of methodologies behind this, and we do have lots of inventions behind this. We're not going to share those today, and you can join, as we share in a minute, the early adopters program. So a space agency has gone through that, and the Jane Goodall Institute, that people are probably aware of, are also currently going through that early adopters program as well. So really, this is about doing two things. It really is about how do we assist cultures and civilizations to codify their human-machine civilizations, to bring through their founding principles, to bring through their cultural diversity, and then to be able to measure and assess the quality of artificial intelligence, the different ethical aspects of it, and how those align to the actual codification of the human-machine constitution, or what we call the AI constitution. It's never been done before, and it's something that we've announced and is a joint invention between myself and Cotty. It works. And this is really important, because what we don't want to do, we want to have different worldviews. We want to honor our diversity. We want to honor cultural diversity, and we must allow for civilization differences. And this is something that Rajiv Malhotra spoke about last week and speaks about in his book on AI, which is we don't want Western civilization mindset elite culture. And we've seen that in all sorts of different human history, whether it was the Portuguese, the British, or the Spanish, or whatever. We don't want to delete cultural diversity. We want cultural diversity to thrive. And this is the only model that allows to codify cultural diversity and actually assess that artificial intelligence is actually aligning with that. So really, this is about equipping organizations and society to come together to define a common ethical standard, to be able to define the different ethical aspects, what I call an ethical AI genome, and then be able to assess the quality of each ethical aspect and to ensure alignment. And for those that don't align, then they have to do a bit better. Those that do align will start to move this new movement of ethical centric societies and take humanity forward. It caters for all artificial intelligences, so this is a foundation for narrow AI. It also caters for strong AI and super AI. And it also can assist responsible AI and trustworthy AI to move into the ethical AI timelines. There's a lot of good work going on in responsible AI and trustworthy AI, but they need assistance for longevity to move into the ethical AI timelines. One of the key things, Maria, it's really important, is this model is inclusive, it's multi-stakeholder, it gives procurement a control to set the standard and to ensure that basically the ethical quality of suppliers is aligned with their ethical standards. And really, it's about bringing order to machine chaos within borders. It's about bringing order to machine chaos within civilizations. It's about creating consistency of machines within a cultural civilization that is aligned with their ethical virtues, their moral principles, the definition of their culture. This really is about uplifting humanity into machine chaos. And also, it's about controlling import and export. That's important for those countries that may not be leaders in artificial intelligence. And so for them to be able to define their own ethical AI quality, to codify the human-machine institution, their human-machine foundational principles, to be able to define the ethical AI genome, to be able to measure those ethical aspects, then they can work with civilizations that are advanced in artificial intelligence and ensure that the ethical AI that's coming into their borders aligns with those constitutions. And these are really powerful tools to work with all artificial intelligences anywhere, whether on Earth or in space. And so really this is about creating a whole new enabling a whole new foundation for humanity to be able to move forward in ethical alignment, to honor our cultural diversity and liberate and empower innovation. So people can find out more at aiethics.world/maturity model. Is that okay, Maria?
That's perfect, Matthew. Thank you very much. And I will just add that we have our Certified AI Ethics Ambassador course as well, the next cohort starting on the 22nd of September. So please do go ahead and check out our website and register for that course if you'd like to learn more about AI ethics and become a Certified AI Ethics Ambassador. And we also have a scholarship program where we are giving some free or scholarships. So if you'd like to apply for a scholarship, also write to us on our website. Yes, get in touch with us. And also our partnerships, Matthew, we have quite a few partnerships that we have gotten in this past month, in the past months or so. Do you want to shed a bit of light on those?
Well, we'll talk about, we made an announcement publicly around a partnership with Smart Cities Americas about taking the educational courses from ourselves and the United States Artificial Intelligence and our certification maturity model for ethical AI globally in smart cities. We'll talk about that a bit later. Obviously, Foster's initiative, Thrive On, a global movement for beneficial systems change. And obviously, we're great friends with MKI and Richard Forrest Foster that's doing some wonderful, 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 wonderful work there and has built up probably the most interesting global AI community in the world with over 7,000 members. So we're all about collaborating. We're all about empowering the innovation ecosystem. We're about people having fun and in innovating our future. For goodness sake, we need to have fun these days. My goodness. So it's enabling the power of creation, the force of innovation through people to be able to participate in shaping a wonderful world.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for staying with us. For those who have just joined us, we are talking about emerging AI opportunities, ethics and myths, and with a special focus on cloud and security challenges. In our next section, in our next discussion, we'll be talking about overcoming AI, cloud, and security challenges in organizations, scaling operations in 2023. So, Matthew spoke about having fun, and I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of fun. Let us bring this home a little bit and talk about security in our own homes and the smart devices we are also excited about. You know, we tend to think of AI and security issues as something only impacting big corporations. But what about when these systems are being implemented within the average household? And to kick off our discussion, welcome Kati, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Maria.
Yeah. Kati, what are your thoughts on the future of smart and connected devices in our homes and their capacity to sense, process, and make decisions about us? How are we going to rely on them to take active and responsible roles in our lives and trust them that they are ethical and that their operation with our data is safe and secure?
So this is a great question. Thank you very much, Maria, for opening this up. And I can see Dr. Mattox having a big grin on his face, because I'm actually going to lead off this conversation and this discussion from what Dr. Mattox kicked off in talking about his, the security paradigms. So when we are talking about security, the discussions that we usually have are around the traditional notions of security and what we call threat vectors. And these threat vectors, when we are thinking through how we design systems, how do we design cloud systems, how do we design IoT and edge systems, are always focusing on how do we secure that system, how do we maintain or how do we do intrusion detection, how do we ensure the security of data, how do we secure the processes and the data transfers and the data storage, what we call data at rest or data in motion. So we think through those threat vectors. And as we moved through the evolution of computing, when we had a mainframe system and we had these large monolithic systems that were connected by dumb devices or by dumb terminals, we actually had a pretty good notion of security, and things were very, very tight. They were compartmentalized. As we move through to where we are today, and we are looking at these edge devices, these multitude of different locations where data is coming from, and the way that data is getting created and data is being stored locally or cached locally and then sent to the cloud, we have the threat vector just increased exponentially. So all of a sudden, even when we are looking at traditional security, the problem statement became enormous. But one of the things that I would like to really dig into is something that Foster was talking about around this concept. If someone initiates force against you, how can you protect yourself? So this concept of non-aggression principle, because where we are starting to think about security is this new notion of security of you in a digital realm. And this is a brand new notion where we have to figure out, how do we protect you and who you are and the data about you within that digital realm, especially when these devices are collecting a large amount of information about you. So let me just get it down to maybe an example that may be interesting. There is a company that created this incredible drone, but many of the drone parts were 3D printed. And they actually had a security vulnerability that they didn't realize. And the data was corrupted in the drone production to create a flaw in the printed part. So the security was not a compromise on somebody stealing data or somebody interrupting the ability to print. So it was not a supply chain interruption. It was actually an introduction of a flaw in the printed part. So when that particular part was installed in the drone, it actually had a failure introduced in that printed part, so that the part would fail at a much earlier point in the cycle than the actual design of that part. Now, if I take this forward to what's happening in these connected devices, and why am I connecting security and ethics and humans in the same conversation? As we are moving forward, these edge devices, these embedded systems are getting more and more data about us and the AI systems within them are making more and more forward-looking decisions and assumptions about us. So things like, even in language, I'm Hungarian and I speak Hungarian, and Hungarian is genderless. But as we translate, and this is very, very funny, but as we translate Hungarian to English, there are assumptions and bias that is being made when translating certain words in certain contexts, because Hungarian doesn't have he, she, and it. As we translate a job of an engineer, usually an engineer gets translated into a he, or a doctor gets translated into a he. Well, I am an engineer and I'm a she. And there's this assumption that's being made by AI systems as they are doing these translations, or they're making these assumptions in the translation of the language. And this is not security in the traditional sense. This is security and proper behavior and proper management of our data within the data security realm. So when we are thinking about ethics and security and connected devices, what's happening in the future is companies that are managing, let's say, voice-activated devices in your home, they're going to start making decisions and informed decisions about advertising to you based on how do you say, I'm fine. Because you can say, somebody asks you, are you okay? You can say, well, I'm fine. I'm doing great. Or you can say, well, I'm fine. Those words are the same as far as AI is concerned. But the inference of that intonation on how I said those words has a different meaning. Now, these companies are working very hard to make their AI system more effective and smarter. And they are going to make decisions about that intonation and what you said, and then what is the result of that. And what I'm trying to pose as a next level of development or next type of thinking in terms of AI security and ethics is, how do you want to be represented? How do you want to secure the data that is being collected about you, on which decisions are made by third parties? How do you insert that level of control that you have, in the non-aggression principle? I don't want somebody to attack me and I'm going to protect myself. When you really think about this in the digital realm, you don't have that ability. And your data is representing you, and others going to make inference and decisions on that data. But you don't have the ability to manage privacy or informed consent. You don't have autonomy. You don't have agency over that data, and you don't have the ability to control its use, its storage, its transport, its the inference that's being done on it. So the traditional notions of security that we think about in IT and in engineering and in computer science need to somehow start evolving into the security of data that you as an individual own and manage, and then evaluate how do you actually apply the security principles that pertain to you in order to handle the ethical requirements that you want as a result. So these are some new complex areas that we are starting to evaluate. And this is part of the reason why I'm so excited to have this esteemed panel of experts that I have the opportunity and privilege to work on a day-to-day basis, because we are now exploring this new set of concepts of what it means to have a cyber data security around the management of outcome of ethical AI results, and what do we need to do within the AI lifecycle, all the way from the beginning of design and development, all the way through operations. So this is DevOps from an AI perspective, that we have to apply not just traditional security paradigms, but also data security paradigms to ensure that the ethical outcomes that you would like to have, you actually have the ability to control, manage, and secure according to the outcomes that you expect. So Maria, I hope that answered your question and gave maybe a different flavor and a new flavor on what cybersecurity means in the age of ethical AI.
So hi, Cutty, this is Matthew.
Hi, Matthew, how are you?
I'm the temporary Maria, because Maria's internet's dropped. So
no problem. Hello, temporary Maria.
I could be temporary. Although I don't have the big hair of Maria, which is gorgeous, absolutely amazing. So thank you once again. I mean, I love listening to you speak because you give such a comprehensive, accessible answers to these challenges that we have and provide solutions. It's such beautiful insight that you provide, so thank you. So I believe there's a second question for you.
Sure.
What ethical codes of conduct do you envisage for AI systems to manage privacy, transparency, and fairness?
So I think the concept of a ethical conduct is very new, because it requires control systems that are not coming from a traditional source. And I think I can connect that code of conduct to the management and ownership around the sovereignty and agency of data.
Right.
Because the current code of conduct, which I think is coming from a very well-intentioned source, is being defined from two different endpoints. There are organizational codes of conduct, there are organizational ethical and moral principles that many large organizations, corporations, even small and medium businesses are defining and exemplifying, providing some public documentation for. But we are also looking at what are the things that we can instrument, that we can measure, that we can deliver from a technical perspective. And there are certain ethical and moral functions that we can define based on things that we measure. And so things that are, I would say, the lowest hanging fruit are some of the traditional security principles. You know, if I look at traditional privacy principles and traditional anonymization principles, there are metrics and telemetry and data sets pretty much through the entire stack of operation where we can provide that data. Therefore, there is some connection between what is it that we want to achieve and what is it that we can measure. And there are some connections on, connecting the two in some place. There are also some ethical and moral measurements that we now connect with organizational goals and ethical and moral statements. Things like let's say carbon neutrality or low power usage, or providing some amount of enumeration of chain of custody of data, which is very effective if you know the source of where the data comes from, which usually data providers can provide to you. Well, I think this is where some of the things start falling apart, because there are data providers providing you the data, and they have some notion where they got the data from, but they never got permission from the actual owner of the data. And those type of measurements are currently not available. And that chain of custody, or that supply chain management that Dr. Maddox was talking about, I think is extremely important, because data is a new type of asset. And the chain of custody, the proof of sovereignty, the proof of agency, the proof of permission, and even in the proof of transaction management and terms and conditions on that transaction, are extremely important in the future supply chain around data. So when we are looking at these concepts of, ethical principles, we need to be able to start measuring and providing the metrics and the data sets that pertain to what the future AI operations are, and how do we provide in a real-time, runtime level at any elements of AI DevOps, the proofs that are needed for consistent applicability and consistent proof of that AI adhering to these principles. And I think that the biggest issue here is where some of these ethical goals and security comes together, is that even with the best intention, as the AI scientists, engineers, developers, designers, architects that are building these AI systems, they design something that's very tight, very, very well scoped, and very well delivered. But an AI system is somewhat organic. So as it operates, it changes. And malicious actors, through non-identified sources, will modify certain aspects of that AI it is running. And sometimes you don't even know that the end result is actually harming somebody, and maybe limiting access, or adding bias, or changing the rules of privacy, or even changing the rules of custody and the enumeration of that, because you may not be aware of the changes that are occurring in an area that is modifying the outcome of that AI. So the notion of security needs to be built both from the source data and ownership, the outcome perspective, as well as the technology and the core security elements and threat vectors that we are traditionally looking at. I think this is designing a new type of threat vector analysis, a new type of security paradigm, and it needs to be real-time and runtime. And frankly, it needs to be responsive to threats and resolutions of those threats in a real-time runtime level. So it's essentially at the speed of light. Because again, from our perspective, if I have a threat coming at me, I have my right to protect myself. And part of what humans do, and I don't remember which speaker spoke about this, but we have a gut feel. So as we are driving on the road and we see a puddle, we kind of make a decision about that puddle based on where it's on the road, and pretty right on. We understand whether or not we should drive around that, or okay, it's a small puddle, we can drive through that and hopefully not break our axle. In the data field and in this digital realm, our digital selves, first of all, don't exist. We don't have the digital control systems to represent who we are and really allow us to operate in the digital realm like we are operating in the physical realm. And as a future tech, beyond creating a representative of human beings that have sovereignty and can maintain the connection between physical sovereignty and digital sovereignty, we actually need to build the AI systems that have a gut feel.
Right.
Right. I mean, ideally, I would love an AI system to be smart enough, like my 8-month-old was when I first took him on in a park, and he was walking on the edge of that little blanket that I put down, and he was, trying to touch the grass and trying to figure out what it was. An AI system doesn't have that knowledge, and it's very, very difficult for us to programmatically solve a gut feel for unknown problems. But we have to have that as a new evolution of security that is safeguarding the ethical and moral goals and principles for individuals, for communities and societies in the future. So what I see here is a job security, because this is a huge problem. And I am looking forward to the folks that are on this call, the esteemed members of the panels and the speakers, to come together and for us to solve and begin to think through this problem set. Because I'm hoping that within my lifetime we will be able to make some forward progress on this. And I think there was one question in the chat that I would like to maybe go back to. I think Ubaldo Siminieri was asking a question, said, do you think we need AI to make that universal morality an actual possibility? I just don't feel that humanity is evolved enough to do this without some major event and something to bring us together like this. I would like to answer that question maybe from a perspective that this event is already occurring, because the data as an asset and data as a sovereign owned asset that we need to build a supply chain for, to own, to provide the chain of custody, to provide the relevant elements to achieve some of the goals I just mentioned. I think this major event is already occurring. And I think in order for us to get to the universal morality, we need to create some of the technology capabilities so that the data can flow and the data can be shared according to the same type of relationships that, any one of us meeting on the street or meeting at a conference, in a meeting, face to face, we begin with a handshake, and that relationship and that trust that we start with. We need to build the technology in order to do this in the digital space. So I know this was maybe a long-winded answer to the two questions that you had, but I think it really gives you perspectives on where the future needs to head and, where we are still stumbling at this point.
Thank you, Koti. Before I hand over to Maria to carry on with the other esteemed panel, I would say to people, can I keep an eye on what Koti's up to and what we're up to? Announcements coming soon. I always say that Koti is the consciousness of Einstein, because she's so smart. It's incredible. So thanks ever so much, Koti. Maria, I'm going to hand back to you and let you carry on. Thank you for being the honorary Maria for the time being. Back to you.
Thank you, Matthew. And you did grow a bit of hair, I see. So as we continue, the cloud has been heralded as the silver bullet that will solve many of the problems companies face when they attempt to migrate and scale their infrastructure and applications. And so I would love to have a conversation with Dr. Milton on this. And thank you for joining us once again, Dr. Milton. And thank you, Kati, for that insightful explanation. I learned a lot, as always, from you. As a cybersecurity expert, Dr. Milton, and who has written and published numerous papers on cybersecurity, what are your thoughts on enterprises using architecture and service delivery models from multiple cloud providers and the challenges this presents for data protection?
Thank you again. I absolutely love the whole conference so far. The webinar is going great. Before I jump into that answer, I think I would just like to take a moment to just reiterate, what Kati just went through, and just have everyone just reflect on that discussion, because it was outstanding. And so not because she's, a colleague and things like that, it's because the content of what she discussed was simply outstanding. So I just want to highlight that. I'm sitting here, I was very giddy as she was talking. I felt like maybe I was in high school and then maybe, maybe like at high school cheerleader going, hey, this is great, rah, 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 siskumba. But again, well done. What I see happening is that as we move into the cloud, and some of this was discussed by Kathy, she touched on it. We have to look at, data is the central piece, right? This is the new, almost like the new currency, if you will, in a digital sense. And so it's the piece that we need to make sure that we keep secure. And so as we move into the cloud and we move into all these infrastructures, and we moved into the clouds actually a few years ago, and we're doing that more and more and more. There are certain things that we look at, right? Katya mentioned this, there's data in motion. This is data that's, say, being streamed, in real time. And that data has to be protected. There's data in transit. Let's say that you have a file on your computer and then you want to move that file from one location to another location. So it gets, transmitted. So it's data in transit. That's one example. Some many others. And then it's data at rest that we have to take a look at. And so all of these things, this data, this new currency, if you will, have to be protected. And they have to be protected in such a way that we are protecting identities, confidentiality, all these different things that we care about. We humans, we organizations as an entity or an organism as an entity, we care about all of this data and they have to be protected. So moving into the cloud, I think is it's still definitely the right thing to do. We found so many ways to get much better at securing data and making sure that things are going well. We found ways to automate the data as it's going back and forth between, let's say the local location and the cloud-based instance, and then this is globally distributed everywhere. So we've gotten really good at this, but I just wanted to touch very briefly on what does it mean when we're writing, for the individuals that are writing this code that underlines all of these things. Companies can put together a process for doing development, usually called software development lifecycle, the system development lifecycle, SDLC. There are various ways of doing that so you can govern and help keep things protected. But when I was writing code, and I was one of, I'm going to say, thousands of people writing code. I was doing thousands and thousands of lines of code a year, if not much, much more. At that time, and this was a few years ago, I was writing this code for major companies based on, and the code that I was writing was based on my own moral way of looking at things, or things that I've learned through my upbringing, or things like that. There was no real, set of rules and morals that we had to follow in general, other than your normal laws that you have to be careful about and be cognizant of. But as you're writing this code, or as individuals are writing code, the digital world all of a sudden became very different than the physical world, right? So there were things that I would never consider when I was writing code years ago, doing physically, that online, it's like, it wasn't quite real, it felt like, although it's extremely real. And so we write code that would do things like, I'm going to grab some data here. Oh, this person is coming on board. Let me grab some data from the individual, keep it over here so that I can compare it later and see if there's some sort of nefarious activity going on. Just willy-nilly grabbing data and information about individuals back in those days without any second thought about, is this right thing to do? I was thinking about the entity and the electronic environment, the digital environment that I was in. And so we can, as people, engineers, men and women, as they're doing this code, what do they bring to the table as far as the ethics that they have? What's the set of ethical rules that says, maybe you should not do that? Maybe you should not hack that password. Maybe you should not store that data. Maybe you should not for data that's encrypted end to end, it gets to the server, you open it up, and then you look at, the data, and then share bits and pieces of the information with, marketing people, although we say we keep the individual's identity anonymous. Maybe we shouldn't do these things, right? That to me is the biggest challenge that we have when you start looking at, not only going to the cloud, but just the digital presence in general. Is, we can get people up to speed on what it takes to learn AI, cybersecurity, data science. We can do all of those things, but we are so much more than that. We have to be much more holistic when we're addressing these things. And we can talk about these things and we can say, what do I do? But how do we get people ethically up to speed? And what does ethics mean? Now, what does it mean in the US? What does it mean in Europe? What does it mean in Asia? Maybe they mean different things. How do we look at things? So it might be ethically acceptable here, may not be acceptable somewhere else. So there's a lot of things that we need to come at and figure out how we're going to address these things. We're nowhere there yet. And so you still have people writing code, designing systems that are still based on their own background. And that's not bad to a certain degree, but I think we need a general consensus as talked about by Kati and Foster and many others. We need a general consensus on how do we do this? How do we ethically, what are these rules that we can put in place that we can build our systems on top of? And I think the cloud-based ecosystem is a perfect, breathing ground for people who are writing code who may not understand the ramifications of some of the decisions that are being made in their code, right? And so we're making decisions all the time in the code. And so we may not understand those things. And so let's take a look at, again, how do we get people up to speed in the various disciplines that they need? How do we make these individuals, or help, not make them, but help them come up to speed no matter what their backgrounds are? It should be available to everyone. It doesn't matter to us. Everyone should have this knowledge. And then overlay that with what principles and processes that we can agree on, globally agree on, that we should all maybe base these ethics as that we're looking at as we write these code and we deliver products. So that's a big challenge right now. It is a huge challenge. I work with engineers, software developers. It feels like 24 hours a day, but every day for at least 12, 14 hours. And I see decisions being made. And I'm thinking, well, why would you do that? Right? That's going to add vulnerability. That's going to exploit this individual's confidential identity. We shouldn't do that. Why is this? When we say that data is encrypted, and companies do this all the time, they say, oh, we do end-to-end encrypted, so your data is safe. And turns out that it's really not end-to-end. Or maybe point-to-point or peer-to-peer might be better, so that the data is completely encrypted. All of these things we need to make decisions on, and it's going to be based on some sort of ethical framework that we have to bring into play. And so we look at these things and we want to help people, everyone, come up to speed and learn about artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and data science. But in addition, we want to help them understand that we are holistic. We as humans, we are holistic, and we need to understand the ethical ramification of the code in systems and hardware that we're designing every single day. And so that's the challenge. I would say that we start by making sure that we include some understanding of ethics, and then we work as a body, not just one group, one organization, but as a collective body on how do we put these things in place to govern ourselves. And it's going to be difficult. The previous speakers have talked about it. We have a hard time, agreeing on, is it better to be a vegan or to eat meat? We go at things and we have a difficult time agreeing on anything. I think the thing that's really important is that once we really understand that we really don't have to all be singing, the same notes at the same time, it's those differences that make us unique, us as the body human. And then we can use that to get much further along and then start to get to real progress towards making a ethical framework that we can base these decisions on, right? It's not going to be as simple as, Isaac Asimov's, 3 laws for robots. It's not going to be that simple. Although it would be great to get to that sort of simplicity at some point. But we need to start somewhere. And that's going to be the challenge. We can get the technology there. We can get people ready to go and learn. And we can get everyone exposed and to this information. But how do we get the ethics built in so that people who are implementing these systems, making decisions at the C-suite, making decisions at the lowest levels, that they're making decisions based on unified, universal ethics that we all sort of agree, that we can agree to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Milton. Wow, that was very informative. And as usual, I enjoyed it a lot. And can we go to Ajit very quickly? I know you've been very patient. Ajit, thank you very much for joining us once again and welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Maria.
And so Ajit, still talking about cloud environments, how difficult is it for teams in general to maintain multiple cloud environments? And how do you think this issue can be addressed?
Thank you, Maria. So indeed, it's a very, very interesting question. And I think everyone should understand this in detail, particularly in the era where, rapidly developing technologies, where we are receiving, new innovations every alternate month or something. Something new is coming very, very rapidly. For that reason, I would like to spend some time to understand the challenges and how to overcome in the multi-cloud environment. So first, understand what is multi-cloud. So multi-cloud is a model of cloud computing where the organizations utilizes a combination of cloud, like 2 or more public clouds or 2 or more private clouds, or combination of public, private, edge clouds to distribute applications and services on different clouds. That is a multi-cloud. Since we are distributing, applications and services on multiple environments, you just imagine the multiple server, then of course, you will not have access of every layer of cloud computing automatically. You should have rights to get everything. And then companies will definitely not give you 100% right. So it means things are not visible to you. And due to this only, security flaws or vulnerabilities, occurs. In this environment, we have advantages also of multi-vendor cloud and disadvantage also. And like we discussed, every panel almost, Dr. Milton, Campbell, Kathy, everyone discussed about the challenges. But here we are, directly focusing on the challenges. What exactly we are having challenges in multi-cloud environment. So few of the challenges are, misconfiguration, insecure interface or access of API, external sharing of data, cyber attacks, management complexity, because you are using multiple, systems at the same time. But we have to think how to overcome these challenges to, make sure multi-cloud is very, very secure and our data and privacy is, very, very secure, and then we keep in a safe place. So configuration is one of the most important points to understand. You must be knowing that, misconfigurations are the cause of 70% or more than that, in fact, security issues in the cloud or multi-cloud environment. So all the well-known companies like Capital One, Expedia, or lots of other big companies, once in their lifetime experience the data breaches as a result of incorrect cloud environment configuration. So configuration is the most critical part of cloud. Then come to architecture. So to minimize the risk, we should have a proper, robust architecture in the cloud environment. Then only we can protect data. So for robust cloud architecture, we should have expert in the team to pay proper attention and design the architecture, and then we can save our data. And lots of other points, like we have to automate security, we have to monitor continuously. I mean, once we will have automation, we'll get 24/7 alert to monitor. Then we should have, we already discussed a lot about AI ethics. So we have to enforce the policies in such a way that, nothing should go wrong. And then, lots of other stuff also, like compliance and, all these things. So if we'll cater all these things, configuration and architecture, policies, then definitely we'll take care of the, security issues that even in the multi cloud environment. Yeah, Mike.
Thank you very much, Ajit, for that detailed answer. And if I can go straight into a second question, I believe AI solutions are an imperative part of staying on track with organizational success. But are they always cost effective? What should organizations focus on in order to stay on track?
Again, this is very, very interesting question, because, AI solutions for businesses may not always be economical. Additionally, I went into detail about this critical aspect in my book, AI for Business Leaders. So you can also think that AI is a trap. Why AI is a trap? Because individuals apply it without fully understanding it. As per the data, 90% of resources are still unskilled. Means we have only 10% skill resource in AI. So it means without knowing the AI properly, they are trying to implement. So organizations should have a solid, very hardcore AI strategy in place before implementing AI solutions. And what organizations are doing? They are utilizing their existing workforce, and they don't have enough knowledge of AI, and they are making the strategy. And if one organizations have started using AI, then we generally tempted to start using AI for our organizations also, probably due to FOMO, fear of missing out something. And this is the difficult part of AI strategy. AI strategy is really very critical, and then most businesses begin utilizing the your workforces to make something in their organizations. So that is the one more major issue here. Now, majority of time businesses lack sufficient planning and strategy, and for just to overcome and focus on economical state of the organization, they have to think on return on investment from AI point of view, means ROI AI point of view. And then they have to cultivate the AI culture and AI mindset in their organization. Then only they can get success. And then, otherwise it will be very, very, costly affair for them. So organizations should think that whether they have to buy it, the AI application, or make it AI application, or partner it. So depending upon the situation, for example, a particular organizations do not have expert resources internally, then of course they have to either buy the AI solution or partner with some other organizations where they have expert resources available. But if organizations have, or they have to upskill or reskill AI workforce, then they can definitely put effort and money to build AI solutions. So that is how we can, be cost effective also. Because if you don't know AI and you will start investing money, definitely it will be a very, very costly affair. So you have to update your workforce, and then if you don't have workforce, then pass it to some other company, collaborate with them, and then start getting AI solutions. So I hope I answered your question, right?
You did. Thank you very much, Ajit. And Matthew, now temporary Maria, welcome to the panel. Can I ask you to weigh in on Ajit's question? And from an ethical AI point of view, what are steps that organizations can take to better integrate cybersecurity into their existing strategies?
Well, I always say, well, thanks for the question. And once again, there's so much high quality content, isn't there, today? It's just wonderful. And I hope that many people share this with their networks and listen to a lot of wisdom in here. It really is at the pioneering edge. I always say this, Maria, we need to learn to nourish the quality of artificial intelligence, right? Part of that nourishment is cybersecurity. It's cybersecurity to protect itself, and cybersecurity to be able to protect it within the ecosystems in which it's operating. So cybersecurity is important, what Coty and I call filter, or what I call part of the ethical genome for artificial intelligence. Cybersecurity is fundamental because we have to protect and nourish this AI so that it has a chance of really doing well and not being interfered with. Coty explained deeply how AI can be interfered with, as did Milton. And then Ajit spoke about other aspects of interfering with technology. And so cybersecurity is a premium nourishment ethic that we need to put within artificial intelligence and also within the innovation ecosystem and the deployment ecosystem in which it's operating. So that's how I would basically answer that. And so how do we measure the quality of the cybersecurity? Well, we can look at things like the policy and governance and the standards that are being complied with, but also looking at the quality of the tool sets, whether there's been interference during the development. We have to look at the whole AI lifecycle, Maria, from origins through to either upgrade, death, or deletion, right? So I'm really glad we're speaking about cybersecurity today because it's just a fundamental pillar in the ethical, to garner the ethical quality of artificial intelligence. And obviously, no one's really cracked so far how to embody ethics in artificial intelligence, but that's what our maturity model does. It allows us to embody ethics and measure that, the different aspects of ethics within artificial intelligence and its holistic life cycle. And that's really important. Allowing us to set standards in ethics around environmental ethics, around ESGs, around things like user agency of data, Society 5.0, and a whole set of aspects, ethical aspects that will go into the genome that we can measure through the ethical AI certification maturity model. So that's my answer to the question. Cybersecurity is imperative. It's a nourishing factor, Maria.
Thank you very much. And I would pause lastly, and by the way, our audience, you have been very patient with us. We are almost wrapping up. And at the end of this call, we will, if the panel is okay with this, we'll stay on and take a few questions because I see there's quite a lot of questions from the audience and we haven't had a Q&A. So as soon as we close, we'll still stay on a bit and take a few of your questions. So please do stay with us. We'll answer your questions later. And Dr. Milton, same question. What are some practical steps that organizations or leaders can take to better integrate cybersecurity into their existing strategies?
Yeah, I would keep this fairly succinct. I love the old adage, what's the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Although I would say as a vegan, I would say maybe the best way to eat a piece of lettuce or head of lettuce one bite at a time. But nonetheless, I think the organization can start with the fundamentals and getting their workforce up to speed in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and other ancillary things that support this effort. So start there and get things going. And then the next level is to look at their cybersecurity infrastructure, what's in place, and how they're sharing and aligning their cybersecurity goals with everyone in the ecosystem. And then thirdly, monitor. So they want to find out what's going on in their environment and keep track of those things, every single second, every single hour, every single day, and make sure that nothing nefarious is happening. While that is, as my professors used to say, that's ex post factor, Milton, that's after the fact, it's still you can use that information to continually get better, which is by definition what machine learning is, and then ultimately make better decisions as we go. It's the definition of artificial intelligence. So start with the fundamentals, get your workforce trained up, and get started there. Make sure you have cybersecurity rules in place, and then monitor your systems to make sure that things are operating efficiently and effectively.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I say I have one more pressing question. Since the pandemic, organizations have started to invest heavily in cloud infrastructure. And Ajit, maybe if you can answer for us that question very quickly before we move on to the next session. Do you think the data privacy issues will get more common as multiple vendors are involved?
Definitely, Maria. So due to multiple vendor, definitely privacy or security is one of the major concerns for the organizations. Since multiple vendors are involved in hosting applications and services, and on a different cloud environment, means different platform, so dependency generally gets increased on one another. And additionally, one might not have access to every layer of other cloud environment, making it difficult to access all the settings, configuration, security layer, and increasing the security and privacy at greater risk, whatever we had earlier in our in-premise environment. So to make it cloud secure, organizations should have to work on multiple aspects. For example, we are using different cloud environment, then we should discuss with them for getting the configurations, architecture. We should have expert cloud technical resources to work on the architecture configuration to make it robust. Then more importantly, we have to working collaboratively within a team, so that, for example, QA should also contribute effectively, then architect, designer, developers, and then apart from this, of course, cloud provider also. So if you'll combine everything, definitely we will have upper edge on the security. Yeah, that's a brief answer.
Thank you very much. Wow, this has been really informative, and I'm sure we can continue the discussion with the audience to answer their questions at the end of this session. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful panel. And Matthew, if we can talk about a bit, just a minute or so, about Smart Cities and Smart Cities Miami Expo.
Is Bernardo online? Has Bernardo joined us?
I did see him earlier, but I'm not sure if he is still here.
I'm not sure if he's here. Okay, well, we can talk about that. So just briefly, we put out a press release late last week, and it's on our website. It's on aiethics.world. And today we've really been talking about nourishing the quality of artificial intelligence. And we've also been talking about how do we nourish human consciousness? How do we, to Foster's point, liberate the power of creation and liberate the power of innovation in true freedom in order for us to really make a big leap forward in the human experience. And so smart cities or society is a very important data point and a very important ecosystem for AI Ethics.world and its partners like the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute to bring the best-in-class education material to cities around the world. So the Smart Cities America runs the Smart Cities Miami Expo. It's the biggest ecosystem of smart city stakeholders in the world. It has 3,000 cities across the world spanning all major continents in there. And what we're going to be doing is making our education courses together with the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute to empower stakeholders to be able to codify their AI constitution for ethical AI for their jurisdictions that honors the culture of their citizens, honors the diversity of their citizens, in order for their culture not to be deleted, but their culture to thrive, and how to bring ethical AI in as a beneficial partner. So we have the ambassadorial course, and we have other masterclasses that are available to teach leaders or teach stakeholders in cities and society to become leaders, to be able to shepherd ethical AI in line with the jurisdictional values to honor their cultures and diversity, in order for ethical AI to become a beneficial partner within society. That's really important. And we you know, there's huge amounts of opportunity, Maria, within smart cities, practical applications for ethical AI within transportation or water security, energy security, which is a huge challenge we'll start to see in Europe with potential blackouts that are going to come during the winter. Around education, I think is really important. What we want, Maria, is basically within any jurisdiction to not to have machine chaos, but machine order. And that machine order is where ethical AI is based on the values and the constitution of those jurisdictions. And so what we're doing is we're actually bringing this new digital citizen into society in order to work holistically and beneficially and in alignment with what the citizens value as really, really important. So that's an announcement. In December, we'll be on stage at the big Smart City Miami Expo talking about this, and we're going to be running a cohort. But it's really, really important to bring ethical AI into society, but more important, it's to empower the procurement folks, the stakeholders of society, to be empowered on how to ship ethical artificial intelligence, to ensure that suppliers comply with their ethical mandate so there's machine order within their jurisdictions and their society can leap forward. And it's important for society to define their ethical terms for artificial intelligence, to shape their view of artificial intelligence, and not to be beholden to the values of others that may not align. And we've seen this with facial recognition, particularly in the United States and in Europe, where certain cities and regions are starting to say, you know, this really doesn't align with our values. And if you really want to bring it in, you've got to prove to us that it aligns with our diversity, it aligns with our cultural beliefs, it aligns with the actual values we have as a society and as a community. So this is a huge announcement to actually globally bring our education courses and also our inventions to impact society, to empower innovation across different cultures, but their terms, Maria, and not based on someone else's terms.
Right, right. Based on their terms. Thank you very much, Matthew.
There's one last point I'll make here just before this, because I think Milton hit on this. The future of artificial intelligence is about being democratized. That's when we start doing well. We want everybody to participate in artificial intelligence, whether it's an AI or an AI ethic leader or an ethical AI leader. We want everybody to be involved. We don't want it to be hidden in ivory towers and organizations. We want it in society because that's its destiny. Its potential is to assist us in society, potentially to solve problems, for us to leap into new freedoms of experience within the humanity. So to Foster's point, we can truly thrive.
Absolutely. So we can truly thrive, and we thrive in partnership. You know, as we say in Africa, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I'm excited about this partnership, and thank you so much, Matthew. And as we come to close to the end, and thank you so much for staying with us. This have been amazing discussions. You know, technology isn't going away anytime soon. The future is ripe with huge potentials. And as AI has already showed us its great potential in marketing, healthcare, entertainment, in smart cities, in every aspect of our lives and in many fields. So whether we want them or not, here or now, advances in AI will only continue to grow more popular because the benefits are simply too great to ignore. But if that's true, then let's be prepared. We want everyone to understand how they can use these intelligences, like Matthew just said, responsibly and safely. And fortunately, there are steps we can take. The panelists have all been sharing to mitigate possible risks in our deployment of artificial intelligence tools and technologies by having open dialogue about those possibilities, those possible risks ahead of time, rather than waiting until the potential damage has been done. So we can educate ourselves I love African proverbs, and I tend to make these mistakes. I was talking to Matthew earlier because I tend to take African proverbs directly into English, and then I listen to them, and then they don't sound the same. But I love this African proverb that says, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And when it comes to such powerful, intelligent technologies, the price of ignorance might just be too high a price to pay. So do take time to explore our courses at aiethics.world, our partners courses at usaii.org, and be sure to find what can work for you, what can work for your organizations, what can work for your teams and communities. And thank you for joining us. And to all our panelists, a big thank you. To our guest speaker, Foster Gamble. Oh my goodness. Thank you very much. It was an honor to have you and to listen to your wisdom. And thank you to our CEO, Matthew James Belly, for a brilliant conversation and for setting this up. And to our partners at USAII, thank you so much. To our wonderful panelists, Kathy Walcott, Dr. Milton, Ajit, if you're still here, thank you. It is an honor, always an honor to have you on the panel. And a big thank you to our teams, both at aiethics.world and at the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute. The work you do behind the scenes is always outstanding. Thank you very much. To the audience, we wouldn't have this without you. You made our event a great success, both by attending last week and being here today, and throughout the conversations we're having during the week. We look forward to continued conversations with you and beneficial partnerships together with us, with you, and with intelligence systems. So keep up the good work you're doing. Someday, when future generations look back, they will be grateful that we did what we did at this present time. Thank you all and have a good day. And so,
thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And so I'll open the floor, whoever wants to ask their questions quickly, and we can take some questions.
I have a question to ask. May I just start?
Please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Maria. So first of all, I would like to thank you a lot for the lovely moderation. I think you did it fantastically well. And I also thank all the other speakers, Mr. Gamble, Matthew, Mr. Mattox, Ajitji, everybody. A little bit background about me before I state my question. I'm a business graduate, and I currently work with a university, with a private university in Berlin, Germany. And I'm also on this endeavor of applying Hindu spiritual philosophy towards AI ethics. Now, some of my, sorry.
Good, very good. Continue.
Yes, and I was pleasantly surprised when you greeted Mr. Gamble with a namaste before when you were talking to him. So there is already some common threads. So some of my research already indicates that although there are a lot of bodies which are working on AI ethics, institutions and governments are taking a lot of initiatives, yet one of the dominant drawback is that the word ethics is not the word ethics is not fully defined for AI ethics because it's only applied ethics which is applied. And at the same time, the definitions which are also applied are dominated by Western worldviews. Well, naturally, because the science was born in the West, and naturally, so from somehow when I look at the various frameworks and when I look at the various research articles, I'm not completely convinced if that is what will solve any kind of problems which the humanity could face because of poor ethical structures while building the AI. So what I wanted to know from you is from the aiethics.world perspective, if I would propose to you that spiritual dimensions, metaphysical elements, metaphysical definitions, for example, karma, or if those things are taken into account while defining or regulating the development or the usage of AI, perhaps it would add value because So if the AI effect, the AI could have a positive effect or a negative effect on human beings in simple terms, but either which ways, it is still an effect, and it is still an influence on the spiritual identity of any human being, irrespective of the background. So if that would be my proposal, how would you as panelists and how would you as specialists respond to it? And what would your next steps be if that was your endeavor?
Okay, this is a great question. I love this question. First of all, is that I'm based in Crestone, Colorado, which has 25 different spiritual traditions here. Okay. It's worth listening to the discussion we had with Rajiv Malhotra that I had with him last week. And
yes, I was there.
Rajiv G is a genius, man. He is brilliant. And his latest book is very, very good. Now, to your point, I asked him this question, and obviously Foster covered it today, is how do we ensure that spirituality and consciousness really is nourished within the age of AI? And so on the website, aiethics.world, you'll see an article I wrote called The New Equation for Ethical AI. And I talk about spirituality and I talk about consciousness. And this is what I think we need. And by the way, we've cracked the codes on how to do this. I believe that every spiritual tradition should codify their constitution for the age of AI to ensure that it supports and advances and does not delete the freedom of consciousness and spiritual exploration at an individual and also a tribal and community level. So creating an AI constitution for a spiritual tradition, I think, is really, really, really important. Now, what we've done is we've actually cracked the codes on how to incorporate that in ethical AI. So that's what Coty and I have invented, this ethical AI certification maturity model, where we can take any AI constitution, say, for example, for maybe for Hinduism, or maybe just for Dharma, right? i.e. Dharma itself, and or Buddhism, whatever you want to do. And basically, we can, from those codified moral principles and ethics and values and purpose statements, we can then basically create subjective questions, which we can then create ethical measurement points for each of the questions. And then we can basically assess the quality of artificial intelligence to ensure the degree of alignment to that constitution. That's what we've cracked. No one else in the world has done that, and we've done that, and we're making it available now. So I'll stop there briefly, but I would say is one, it is the question of our decade, what you've just said, because consciousness is the most precious expression of the universe that we know at the moment. And we should nourish that consciousness and the freedom of it to explore spirituality and the individual's partnership and experience with oneness with the universe. That's really, really important. And so within the age of AI, and Rajiv talks about this, is in the age of AI, this is why we have this methodology of creating a constitution for either a civilization, nation, a region, a tribe, and a spiritual tradition, and then basically be able to measure the ethical quality to ensure the degree of compliance to that constitution. How does that sound?
It sounds amazing. I have to just further dig up how that would happen. Perhaps I should write to you later and then enroll for one of your certifications.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. And what we've done is we're just starting to go public. There's a lot going on globally in the background, so we're gradually sharing a little bit more. We've done experiments with probably the world's #1 space agency, so with others as well. And we're coming out of incubation where we feel confident this works, and we're putting in place global foundations for this to be accessible to everybody in the world.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Murray.
That is a great question. Thanks so much. I love that question.
Great question indeed. Matthew, we have another raised hand. Mubarak, if you can just quickly state what your question is.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'm Mubarak. I'm currently a postgraduate student of artificial intelligence. So my question is regarding AI ethics with regards to synthetic data. Currently, we've seen the new area of synthetic data coming up in the area of medicine and also public health. So do we think individual ethics need to be put into this, or it has to be like an institutional based ethics? Like last year, that was in 2021, the United Nations had 191 countries ratified to the new ethics that was put in place. So, but when it comes to synthetic data, which is based on research, what level of ethics do you think should be put in place? Should it be institutional based or like individual based?
Okay, this is a good question. So synthetic data is nothing new. In 1996, when I was designing algorithms for electric vehicles, we used synthetic data in order to be able to initially train the algorithms. And then basically we then went to a real life scenario, collected real-time training data, and then basically improved the model and then deployed it. So synthetic data is nothing new. What I do think we need are a couple of things. One is, I think we need a Library of Alexandria of trusted data that has agency behind it. What we see, for example, in neural nets, the research in neural nets, Mubarak, you're probably aware of this, the majority of that data that's being used to train neural nets is controlled by a handful of organizations. And within that, there are, let's just say, unaligned values, right? There's certain kind of values that they have that may not be aligned with the folks that are inventing neural nets. So we need basically a Library of Alexandria of data where people have agency of their data and they can permission-based the data into the Library of Alexandria to make it accessible to everybody and choose how their data is used to train AI and to assist with its development. So I think that's needed. When it comes to synthetic data, I think there's a couple of things here. One is people are trying, privacy is good, but it's a hoodwink. And really we need to go back, and Coty speaks about this, we need to go back to the agency of data itself. And give people full permission as an early contract before they even engage with the digital world to be able to control their data, to be able to get decide on how it's used, and also to be able to receive remuneration, something like that. So when it comes to ethics around synthetic data, I think that we need to examine what I call the ethical quality of the origins of artificial intelligence, and part of that is the quality of the origins of data itself. And as part of that, and I've already done this because we've already tested it, we can identify certain ethical measurements to assess the quality of the origins of the data. Because obviously if the data is unethical, the origins of the data is unethical, then effectively, fundamentally, artificial intelligence is unethical. So it's important for us to have a high quality ethical measurement of the origins of data, and there's different ethical aspects that we've designed around that. And it's a freedom model, so you can design your own ethical aspects for synthetic data to ensure that its quality is ethical. When we look at synthetic data, we need to make sure there's no fake data. We need to ensure that the synthetic data itself probably should be structured, so we can have structured learning, which help us to move much faster. Although unsupervised learning can also assist when we've got huge data pools. So I think synthetic data is interesting. What they're trying to do is trying to bypass the privacy and agency kind of conversation. I think what they're also trying to do is use synthetic data so the models are smaller, so the training can be faster. And I think those are interesting innovations. I think those are very, very interesting innovations. So synthetic data is nothing new. I think it's about basically giving us a kickstart in developing the particular AI algorithm, no matter what it is. And then basically, I think we have to go back to the real world in order to move from the simulation into the real world application with real world training data. So good step forward. There are some questions to look at, but I think we're going to end up with we're going to have to go through real-time data input in order to perfect the model before it actually goes into society. Does that sound okay?
That sounds okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. Great question.
Thanks, Matthew. We do have another question from Mena, our colleague. Hi, Mena. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. I really just wanted to get a reaction, if possible, from some of you about the news that Facebook has settled the lawsuit with Cambridge Analytica, and there's speculation that they're just really trying to avoid testifying about the details. That was one of those instances that it was 4 years ago that really woke me up to some of these problems.
Interesting. Your reactions, Matthew, Dr. Milton.
Let's ask Dr. Milton, see what he thinks, or Ajit.
Actually, I agree with the premise that some people have put out, that they're basically wanting to avoid speaking about it to hide some of the things that are out there.